Good evening, everybody. This is Gunther Fehlinger speaking here from the Gunther Fehlinger podcast. Again, in these exciting times when the strike against Iran has started and Ayatollah Khomeini has been killed, we are discussing global politics here at the Gunther Fehlinger show. The show, thanks to you all, is doing very well because we are developing here with 147,000K on X and also with new soon, hopefully 17,000 on YouTube and 32,000 on Instagram. But today I have an even more famous guest here, and I'm very honored. Dr. Kari Odermann, an expert on political affairs and one of the big explainers about global politics and the political science on Instagram and TikTok. And she is referred to as Dr. K. I call her Kari, but maybe Dr. K is the best title I heard on your Instagram that you refer to yourself as like this. And I would like to welcome you very much. And please introduce yourself, Dr. K. And we are looking forward for our debate this evening. Welcome.
Thanks a lot, Gunther. It's good to be on your show. I appreciate the invitation. And Gunther, we've known each other for a while. You can stick to Carrie. I'm absolutely fine. Um, Dr.
Dr.
K.
K.
Well, Dr. K is the brand I've developed on social media because back when I began making TikToks, oh gosh, 2020, I realized that there was anyone taking up the space to give people fact-based information on these platforms that are made for entertainment. So I put my elbows out and I started making content. And that's what I do. I am a political scientist, though. And much like you, I've spent a lot of time in Ukraine. So that's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And right now, I'm spending a lot of my time as a consultant, helping NGOs, ministries, international governments try to figure out how they can use social media to build trust and legitimacy and also to keep people safe, right? Because in Europe, we need to talk about things like civil preparedness. And every country and every culture has a different way of picking up on like the nuances of information. And this is where social media is going to be really important too.
Absolutely, I understand this is one part of your expertise, the social media and also the whole issues about content, safety, and freedom of speech and our relation with Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah. And we're on Twitter right now, right? We're live on Twitter.
Yes, I just posted live on Twitter. That's what I do here. And then everybody who is on my Twitter feed can see it live. Hello, everybody, guys. We are here with Dr. K, a star from Instagram.
And I am also on Twitter, Gunther, but nowhere as large as you are. And the,
Yeah, and I will tag you later because I
okay.
actually had the same motivation in 2020. It's very interesting
Mhm.
because I saw for my children a lot of content which was pro-Serbian, pro-Russian, and a lot of crazy things, conspiracy stuff. And it motivated me to be then active on YouTube and Twitter and somehow tell the facts as an economist and as a lifelong political activist how I see the world. And that's why I developed my accounts, and I want to give the positive but correct message about our Western institutions and what we do. And this is my motivation as well.
Yeah, you see, Gunther, we've got a lot in common. It's really not easy, especially, and you and I both have kids that are in that age where they spent a lot of time online. And when you look over their shoulder at their devices and see what they're looking at, it's shocking. But you're an economist, I'm a political scientist. You and I also have a double problem. And since it's just the two of us, maybe I can talk to you about this. There's one thing of putting things out there on social media, and there's another thing about having a professional, in-depth conversation. And it's two different types of messaging. And I personally struggle a little bit with some of the ways I have to explain things, not because complexity makes someone somehow better or smarter. I believe just the opposite. It's just that sometimes you have to look at the lowest common denominator when you communicate. And that's hard for a lot of academics. And it's also hard as an academic to maybe, turn down the volume to maybe an eighth grade level of English for people. But I have found that I am much more effective in communicating ideas where I can pick up people where they are than having research trapped in a PDF somewhere, right?
Look, when you write some report and it's nowhere to be read and only a little bit of a niche audience is discussing, and on the other hand, you have Elon Musk with an account of 220 million followers who shares some extreme right wing or absolutely hate against Europe on his account, and then we have to fight back. I think we have to tell the truth. And even when our accounts have just 100,000 and not many millions, it's the only way to really defend our values and our systems.
I think that being on the app, before we went live, you were talking about how you're kind of working across different platforms. And I think that's so important. Just recently, I was in a discussion with, that's going to sound like I'm name dropping here, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. I was lucky enough to be on a panel with
The
her.
hero of Belarus, the opposition leader who
Yeah.
is now in exile, and she's fighting against the tyrant of Lukashenko, who, by the way, should fall next, hopefully, because we are now in a year where the dictators will fall, and it would be wonderful to have democracy in Belarus.
I think the people
What
of
do you know?
Belarus would really, really like that too. And, they've been using the internet to try to organize things. And we talk about how Tikhanovskaya is a dissident leader, but, they use social media to do exit polls to validate the fact that she actually won the election, right? The problem is YouTube and Meta and Google, because they are obligated to follow the laws of the land. In Belarus, a lot of Tikhanovskaya's content is not visible at all. And this was a conversation that we had in general about how people in control of platforms can control so much. And we know how the EU, I don't know when it was it in December when Elon Musk was fined by the EU for not being transparent about how his platform and algorithms work? And Gunther, just at the last couple 10 days, there's been a major peer-reviewed article or piece of research that came out that actually proves that Twitter's algorithm did in 2023 cause some people to embrace more conservative views. And I mean, it's research from 2023, but it was so heavily scrutinized and peer reviewed because the researchers thought it was so important. It just came out from Nature, and now I'm looking towards Hungary. I'm looking towards that upcoming election. What is it now, on April 26th, where Viktor Orban is running again, and it looks like a close race. But if platforms can just push people a couple percentages one way or another.
Naja, it's a very tight race, but I think Peter Magyar is now significantly ahead in the opinion polls. But you can be sure that Orban, with his help of American tech bros and Elon Musk, will do everything to manipulate the situation. And we have not won yet.
You're familiar with CPAC, right? The Conservative Republican. They're having a CPAC in a couple weeks in Hungary too for the 5th year in a row. So, gosh, I think back to what J.D. Vance said at the Munich Security Conference in 2025 about freedom of speech and not influencing people's elections. And then you have the United States holding CPACs in Hungary. You have these Trump standing 100% behind Viktor Orban. It is disappointing when people don't hold themselves to the same standard they hold others.
You were also at the Munich Security Conference this year.
Yeah, this year was a lot quieter than last year. It seemed on the first day of the conference, everyone was kind of like waiting for the other shoe to drop, like it had in 2025, and that wasn't the case really. You know, with my close connection to Ukraine, it's hard for me not to lose my patience a little bit with the European Union. And what are we now on our 20th round of sanctions? And I felt like things could be going a lot faster for a very, very long time. And hindsight's always 2020, though. We're finding new things out every day. It was just in the news that what was it? An employee from the German far right party, the AfD, apparently had a Russian passport, and he was responsible for slowing down the delivery of the Leo tanks. And and I have to say, I read that on Twitter, right? So I have not confirmed, fact check that. And Munich this year, I don't want to say it was anticlimactic. I want to say that there's going to be a real, I don't want to say there's going to be a real reframing, because it sounds like it's going to take a long time. The reframing's already started happening, but where people are going to have to start putting priorities is going to be more at looking for common denominators. I'm really looking at things like the EU's relationship with Turkey, because there was also kind of always dangling EU membership in front of Turkey, and then trying to use that as leverage to change some of their activities based on human rights and things like that. And Turkey is going to have immense new meaning now because of where it sits, because of its military strength, its ability to produce things like that 155 millimeter shells and things like that. The fact that it's in NATO, the fact that it's going to be a major point where pipelines are going to have to start running through. I mean, do we need another situation now that the Strait of Hormuz is going to maybe be a choke point again? Now that Syria's calmed down, we could have, pipelines running through Syria, then through Turkey, bringing not Russian gas to the EU, right?
So, Dr. K, let me ask you, are you in favor of Turkey joining the European Union in the new light of circumstances in the fifth year of the Russian war against Ukraine? Turkey not having joined the sanctions, not closed the airspace, and having been somehow helpful for Ukraine with the Bayraktar drones in the beginning, but somehow not so helpful for Ukraine in other aspects. Yeah? So it's a little bit of a mixed picture. Should we reward Turkey now after this performance, or should we wait for a time after Erdogan?
I don't think it's a question of rewarding or necessity. I think really using an old framework for a new time isn't going to work. I think we need to find the common denominators. I think it has always been a real luxury to be able to hold people to a high standard, but times have changed, and we have to look at everything from a security aspect. And when you look at things from the security aspect, you have to look at immigration differently. You have to look at a lot of things differently, and it's hard. It's hard. There's cognitive dissonance to readjust. And I'm not saying looking at those things with liberal democratic framing was bad. I'm just saying that we have to be realistic now. And
Do you think that, Dr. K, the shift is now the security and the strategic must be first for the consideration of European Union, and therefore it's much more important to integrate Turkey closer and faster because we need it as a strategic ally in Southeast Asia?
I see a trend of more regional cooperation, right? The question is, should Turkey join the EU? Does Turkey need to join the EU anymore? And is Turkey even going to pursue that? Turkey may.
Erdogan has said yes, he wants it. He has pushed last week very hard for it.
Okay, so I haven't followed those developments very much. So this is just kind of me talking out of my back pocket. Um, I'm I'm looking at more things in terms of like regional cooperation. I was recently sitting around a table with a bunch of people from the Black Sea, and they were talking about turning that into something more of like a Lake NATO. And to do that, you
Good. Dr. K, this is what I say in 10 years, and Putin hates it. Putin always said he will not allow NATO to turn the Black Sea into a NATO lake. And here we are with Dr. K, and she is promoting the same concept. I like
well,
it. One
it's
question about Ukraine's EU membership, because I think you're from Germany, I'm correct, yeah? So Germany is the big power, and the question, of course, is now on the table. Will Ukraine join the European Union or not? And we are waiting for the big answers from the Chancellor In Munich, he was so avoiding it a bit. But can, as the Commission has proposed, Ukraine fast track into the European Union as part of a peace settlement?
Well, I would have loved to have seen Ukraine join the EU a long time ago. And they're still, despite the war, making big steps. Now, I don't know if you're catching this in the background, but I'm sitting here in my office, but my printer is shared with my entire family, and apparently someone's printing out homework right now. So I'm sorry if you're hearing this in the background. I'm going to have somebody come in a minute too and be like, "Oh, where's my homework?" But no, come on.
This is the life
It's
of a family mom.
yeah, it's not a question if they should or not. It really isn't. There's always going to be the narratives about how they're too corrupt to join the EU, or that we've heard all the reasons why. But I think they have really proved that they deserved to be in the EU, and it's finally being realized.
Good. Welcome. And this were very efficiently done back then. Mm. We have a history of appeasement and of slow decision making in the European Union, which in these dramatic times, it's kind of a burden for the Europeans because every month, every week, actually something big is happening, and we are always waiting, seeing, coordinating, and waiting until the decisions are taken by others. Mm. It is, when you say on Monday and world affairs and history is made from Saturday until Monday morning, and the Europeans are missing in action while America is shaping world affairs, it is not very convincing performance ultimately. But he has assembled half of his navy already in the Persian Gulf for 4 weeks. So, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to assume that there will be military action. It was quite foreseeable. And then to be surprised and then to run like chickens around is not very convincing, I think. So, at least my statement. That is on the 8th of January when the big massacre happened, 30,000 people killed in the streets of the many Iranian cities by the Ayatollah, and he should have maybe acted by then. So, what's your expectation? He will continue his military campaign, or he will basically be satisfied with the decapitation and let things slip and slide again? Yeah. Still, I was surprised how effective it is in the first 28 hours, 48 hours to have such a impact and so good intelligence, exactly where the Ayatollah Khomeini is based, and much of his Security Council has been eliminated in the first days of the strike. But let me ask you as well about the role of Reza Pahlavi. What's as a political scientist? It's not so happening so often, the restoration of a monarchy. Do you think that's an option? Because there is a lot of resistance to that, also in the European left, but there is huge demands for the restoration of Reza Pahlavi in the Iranian diaspora in Europe, and it's a political very, from a scientific point of view, I think rarely in history it has happened. In Spain, for example, it did, and there was discussions in some Eastern European countries. But do you think that even is an option, or do you think that is basically a non-starter from the day one? So let's see, he has not said that he wants to be the king. It's so basically the idea to lead a transition government and then to make the decisions for the constitutional form. But as I see it, he is basically the only crystallizing figure with millions of support, at least I think inside and outside of Iran at the moment, given the celebration after the death and the end of Khomeini. I think he will be having a big role to play. But we will see that in the future. Let's talk about Ukraine. For years now, the war is raging, and there was now the anniversary, the tragic anniversary of 4 years since the full-scale invasion has started. How do you see the prospect of a peace settlement now on the ongoing negotiations? And what's your expectations for 2026? Will the war go on, or is there a realistic chance for a peace settlement? I've been in 2025 in March in Lviv only by bus from Vienna, and I've been at one of the funeral sites of 800 Ukrainian soldiers. It was very moving, and also I've been at the Superhumans Rehabilitation Center. So definitely I saw some of the pain, but I saw also a lot of courage and a lot of determinations for victory. And I guess the recent events where the new Minister of of Defense, Mr. Fedorov, has somehow convinced Starlink and Elon Musk to take Russia off the Starlink system, and resulting 400 kilometers, square kilometers of land regained and re-liberated by Ukraine has shown that Ukraine is basically on the winning side. And once the international system shifts back to Ukraine and the American support is there, and then Ukraine can liberate as well Crimea, which I'm optimistically this is happening after Elon Musk has basically given the technology lead towards Ukraine. How you see, because I see in your research you are working very much on these whole issues of digital cooperation between Europe and the US and about Elon Musk's policy. We discussed it in the beginning already. How do you see this shift of Elon Musk? Will he be more pro-Ukrainian in the coming weeks? Will he be more pro-European? or will he continue his completely crazy sharing of extremist content with his mega account? How you assess his next steps now in March 2026? And Yeah, we had the chance, the Ukrainians had the chance to basically take 20,000 Russian soldiers as prisoners and maybe also to move towards Crimea. But Musk and others have basically canceled that opportunity with their decisions. That was close to high treason. Mm. It is really difficult to see that Elon Musk, with all his complicated personality via Starlink and X, is controlling the information access and also the public opinion. He has massive influence globally. And unfortunately, he has many flaws in his decision making and his assessment. So it's the Americans who have to update their law for the 2020 reality. It was justified to fine him, I guess. I can tell you from my own experience on Twitter because I have this 147,000 case. And when Epstein file was, this was in the 30th of January, Epstein was disclosed, and I had 3 million views on Twitter. And then it was within the next 2 days, it reduced to 300,000 views on Twitter because I think he had artificially downgraded the reach of all users on Twitter. That's, I think, the policy, not only against me, but it's otherwise no explanation why you have one day 3 million views and otherwise 300,000 the next days. Yeah, there's no logical because I did the same activity and the same topics and the same tweets. Yeah, and so it was no other way than he is manipulating the reach. And additionally, now the last 2 days, when the Iran war started, he had basically the biggest days on Twitter ever. So he has enormous information power behind him. but he is not ready to share the revenues. Beside, that's another point. But when I, for example, now was by some communists, they published my telephone number just today in order to whatever punish me, and it's called doxing. They have done that. Then we made a complaint towards him, and we made actually four complaints about everybody. And he said, or his algorithm or his service team said that this is all totally okay according to his platform, and it's not a valid complaint. Yeah. So he is investing nothing in decency in his platform while he makes a lot of money, and he abuses his control of information and information reach completely for his own specific political purposes in America and Europe and everywhere else. And it's absolutely unacceptable what he's doing, in my view. And I have called many times on Twitter already for the nationalization of X into a public fund, and it must be totally managed differently, because it cannot be in the hand of one individual and his bizarrities. And I personally think that the whole purchase of Twitter for 43 billion euros was already a very dodgy transaction, which needs to be investigated again, because it's all basically meant to manipulate global public opinion with the most important platform there is, which X today is, no doubt about it. But unfortunately, manipulated by its owner. And what's the alternative? Hmm. Leaving is not the option. Yes. This vacuum must be filled by Dr. K, by Dr. K. Odermann. Ah, you asked me the big question. Okay, you turn the tables on me. It's my lonely fight here. Yeah, no, I will one day succeed, but it can take another 100 years, or it goes a bit faster when the Austrians somehow see the light that we are really part of the West. And ultimately, we are depending on Germany on that one, because the Chancellor has said in Munich at the conference you attended that he will turn the European Union in a defense alliance. And we really like to stay into that European Union. So when you really get serious and turn the Article 42.7 into a more solid security guarantee, then there is no space and no excuse anymore for the Austrians not to dump neutrality. And so the Germans hopefully will do that. And then we will dump neutrality, and I will be the most happy man in Austria for that moment. And this is my plan. It's open here on the internet. And ultimately, when we are no longer neutral, we can join as well NATO. So that's the logical way of events for the next 3 years, which I'm proposing here as the chairman of the Austrian Committee for NATO enlargement. This is my answer. I should never invite a political scientist who turns the table against me and interviews me on my podcast. Yes, Yes, the NATO has officially distanced themselves from me, but I've never claimed to be a NATO official. Truth of the matter is, I became relatively famous in the American media space, which I enjoyed actually very much. And truth of the matter is, don't touch the, Greenland, Mr. Trump. And the bases are really very important, Carrie, Dr. K, as you know, when you see now the Iran liberation, about all of the military equipment of America, which was coming from America, had to land in the European bases in Germany, Ramstein, Aviano, in Sofia, in Bulgaria, and in Britain, in many of that military centers. And so, without the European bases, America could not be the global power it is, and it has to be for the future. So, I'm touched, I think, a valid point. Whenever on the American media, when they invited me to some shows, they said, what exactly can Austria do to take us the basis? Because we just are a neutral country. And of course, I don't represent the Austrian institutions. So I'm actually very pro American personality. And I don't want to attack anybody but Russia and Iran, of course. But nevertheless, I'm very much in favor of American European friendship and partnership. And I hope that after this whole thing turns all out successfully in Iran and hopefully the liberation of Crimea, I think the whole mood between Europe and America should be much closer again because we are like brothers and sisters over the Atlantic. Yeah, look, everything will be decided now on the battlefield of Iran, and the Americans will see that they will need the European allies, and everybody has to position himself wisely for the future now, because if Iran will be liberated, Ukraine will be liberated as well, all of Ukraine, and we will be very victorious. And then I think our joint cooperation between America and Europe in victory will be very good. If we are losing, we will fight who is to blame. So much depends on the outcome of the two wars we are fighting at the moment. And I'm actually very much in favor of victory of our side. Yes. It's very interconnected because we are basically one industrial fiscal system with the Americans, the Europeans, Ukraine. It's one side, and it's the Iranians, the Chinese, and the Russians on the other side. So, of course, if we manage to take the Iranians out of the equation this week, next week, completely, it's a big, huge hit against the Russian Chinese axis. And that makes a major impact fiscally, economically for our enemies. And if we win, then of course the chances of the Ukrainians to liberate their territory increase massively. If there is some boldness on European sides, which this is of course doubtful, but normally the Ukrainians will take their liberation in their own hands, and we at least will not be in the way, because ultimately such big ideological conflicts are decided on the battlefield, and we have seen that often in history, and we win or we lose, and I'm for winning. Security guarantees for Ukraine is very clear. This is about NATO membership. Ultimately, Ukraine has to join NATO. This is the only way for peace. And it's very clear that it's in the European interest, because having Ukraine only in the European Union without NATO membership would give the whole security burden to the Ukrainians, the Europeans without the Americans. And of course, we want the Americans on board. And of course, we have to win this debate in America that Ukraine should be a member. And it ultimately will, because once victorious, I think the Americans will welcome Ukraine as the eastern shield of the NATO alliance. And of course, the Europeans have to give a financial commitment for this big standing army in the east. This will be the compromise to be found later in the year 2026 and 2027. Otherwise, the war will drag on for decades, and nobody can want that. No, this is one of the game-changing elements, Dr. K. Kari, because Mr. Merz, at the beginning of the mandate, now in 2025, he has made this huge decision for the massive spending expansion of the German debt, which is basically funding the logistical, industrial, and fiscal victory for Ukraine. And of course, these decisions, which was very close and very hard to make, and cost him also dearly in the electorate, but nevertheless, it was very wisely, and this decision will lead to victory, because with this kind of resources we can build the German, and therefore also the Central European and the Ukrainian industrial military complex to such a dimension that we compete and ultimately also defeat Russia. So that's, I think, the logic of everything, because Russia doesn't have the fiscal resources to really wage this war on that dimension any longer. And so they are crumbling, and we are rebuilding our whole military infrastructure. So Russia will lose this war. We are going to win. But of course, we have to keep the public opinion on track for that. That's the big battle. This is our weakness. And this is important to convince the people that victory is possible, is on the way, and will be coming. Okay, good. Let's do that. Sorry? Cats or dogs? You ask me cats or dogs? I don't have any pets, so I'm not a cats man, not a dogs man. I opt for zero answer on that one. The best way to shoot down a drone is of Patriot. I love Patriot. I'm a European patriot. I opt for Patriot. I'm not big in football, but my children love it very much. So I opt for football, Carrie. Yes, I try. I try as much as I can, actually. Yeah? I can lift 100 kilograms. It's not as much as Pete had said. He can lift supposedly 140 kilograms. Respect, Pete. But I'm on the 100 and I can lift it once at least. And I'm happy about it. And after this conversation, I will go to the gym again and tweet some photos of myself on my X account to prove it. It was very nice that you took time. May I close and recommend your Instagram account, your TikTok account, Dr. K, Kari Odermann, political scientist, came to this podcast and interviewed me actually. That is always the case when you have a political science professor here at the podcast. You have to answer her question, and that I did with pleasure. Thanks a lot, Carrie, Dr. K, for coming to the show. All the best, and thanks a lot for staying on the Gunther Fehlinger podcast. A good discussion, and we touched many important issues. And thanks a lot for this nice conversation. Good.